In terms of today's conversation and the unfair refugee determination process, I guess the process itself has been designed in a way that that it is quite deliberately a system that brings with it so many evils and so many ills and so many negative consequences. So when we're talking about unfair refugee determination process, think of it this way, right? And I'm sure we all know this, but people who come by air, people who come by sea. There's no other way to get to Australia, right? We did have someone who actually swam from the ship to the shore up in Darwin. I don't know how they made it out and away from the crocs, but it was admirable. It was pretty amazing. So getting back to the process has been designed in a way, the system is designed in a way that there are obviously deliberate consequences, but then there are, unintended consequences that the government or politicians and people do not see. They don't understand at the time when they create these policies and they create this system. I was having a conversation with a friend earlier today, this morning, and also on the way here, and I just quickly sort of picked their brains because this person is currently also seeking asylum, and we were just having a conversation about the impact, the consequences, or the unintended consequences that they see. Before I forget, I quickly want to talk about them before we move on to other issues, other challenges. As I was saying, the system is intentionally intended to be so divisive of the way that people come here that it naturally affects the people who are seeking asylum. So anyone who comes by air or by sea, because the government, because the narrative of the media and politicians has been such that coming by air is viewed as being the right way, and people who come by sea, that is viewed as being the wrong way, right? Now, while I'm saying that, think of consequences, yeah? Think of what happens when we label the two, we first of all separate the two ways, and then we talk about the impact of that, yeah? So, first of all, it divides the people, the very people who seek asylum, it divides them. Now, believe it or not, there are people seeking asylum from different communities, and at the moment, the majority being Iranians, being Hazaras, being Afghans, being Syrians, being Iraqis, Kurds, etc., etc. Now, even within these communities, and even within this whole community as a whole, this whole community of people seeking asylum, refugees, etc., there is a division, thanks to this narrative of division, which is quite deliberate. So the people who've come by air, because of this narrative of the government, because of this line that the media is taking, the people who've come by air, they claim to have come through the right way, and they claim to have a more legitimate reason for being in this country. They think that they are better. Yeah? So then you have the people who've come by sea, who naturally, because of this narrative, they feel ashamed. They feel ashamed of who they are. They feel ashamed of the means by which they've come to this country. And that impacts them as a person, as a people, in the sense that they lose self-worth, they lose self-belief, it crushes their self-esteem. And of course, they stop believing in themselves. And what happens is that, and this is my own experience, and my experience of listening to a lot of people who come by sea, that there is that shame, there is that they somehow feel this reason, this need to hide that. Yeah? Even though nothing should reduce, nothing should dilute their experience of hardship, because this coming this way, this going through this experience and this journey is not easy, obviously, but because of these narratives, because of this process, because of this system, there is this shame that these people feel. And because of this narrative again, because of this line that the media takes about the right way and the wrong way, what is happening is when people go out into the community, when they're ready to get on with their lives, even then, whether they are still currently seeking asylum, living in the community, whether they have been accepted as refugees in this country, what is happening is that a simple example of when they go to an employer, they are viewed as someone who doesn't have the credibility, right? They can't be trusted. Why? Well, you've kind of burnt your documents and thrown them away, and you don't have any documents. Why should we trust you? Whereas someone who's come by plane, by air, naturally, they are seen as having credibility, right? So this narrative, right from the start, is already very divisive, and by narrative, the narrative that is attached to this system that we've created. Now, since I can remember, since I've been involved in this space, I remember, and I guess I'll start with the first time I actually saw some people get off a boat. I remember a group of young people, quite young. The majority of them were unaccompanied minors, and that's my experience of mostly working with people seeking asylum inside detention. I remember when these people got off the boat, they weren't given an opportunity to go and freshen up, go and clean up, go and wash up. Yeah? They were brought into this massive hall. They were paraded, literally. They were paraded and brought into this massive hall where there was a quick medical check, and then they were given some sandwiches to feed them quickly, and then immediately they were taken to be photographed. Yeah? Do you realize what's happening there? If we think for a moment, people who have lost that sense of humanity, lost the idea of being human, right? People who are living under dictatorships, people who have experienced persecution, oppression, torture, people who have had to escape all of that, cross borders, and then seek asylum in a few countries, multiple countries, and then not be viewed as human, not be viewed as people with rights, and then they're forced to again seek asylum, cross oceans this time, and come to Australia, and then detention, right? When I saw that scene for the first time, I realized that the people who have already lost a major chunk of that sense of humanity were taking away those bits that are left now. We're destroying what is left. And these people, unaccompanied minors, what was left of that sense of humanity will be gone during that time that they're in detention. Because then, you've got the whole problem around people being called by their boat IDs instead of their names, etc., all those problems. But what I realized in those moments was that once those people lose their humanity and that sense of being human and deserving respect and being treated with humanity and dignity, once they forget that, then they think detention is okay, right? So I met with a lot of young people who, for a long period of time, they were thankful to be in detention. They were like, this is great, this is better than back home. I get fed, I get clothed, I'm safe. Yeah? That's how bad this process, this system is. When people who have done nothing wrong think that it is okay for them to be locked up. Yeah? That's what this process does. When we say, it completely dehumanizes, that's what it means. So once these people get out, and as we can look back at the last 20 years, as the laws change, policies change, and not for good, there are no positive changes, of course, but when the system becomes harsher and harder, what we notice is that these people who've lost their humanity, they still think that, well, this is life, this is okay, and this is part of the process. Yeah. So currently, we've got TPVs. Yeah. I think I've said this before once, and I'll say it again. It was a year and a half, close to even 2 years, before I actually realized one day, and it was quite sudden, that I have control over my life. And it was overwhelming. And I don't say this as a victim. I don't say this as a person, oh, poor me, I have so much opportunity in this country now. I can do whatever I want. But that's what I mean. Going from losing your sense of humanity to being whoever you want, being whatever you want to be. I have the best life. I have the best life ever. Because you see, when I wake up in the morning, I don't even have to go to work if I don't want to. And I don't say that because I'm lazy and I don't want to work and I get on Centrelink. No. But I say that because I'm human. I feel human. Yeah? I feel that I should be treated with dignity, with respect. I feel that I should not feel ashamed. I should not lose face. I should not be embarrassed. I feel that I have complete ownership of what I look like, how I want to see the world, how I want to be viewed by the world, how I want to present myself to the world. But what this process has created, what this system has created, it has taken away all of those things. Yeah? So when we look at this process now, and especially with the introduction of TPVs and the SHEV, I had this realization after 2 years of getting a permanent visa. Yeah? And it was almost like all of those years, you were hoping, you were waiting for life to arrive. Yeah? Because you get so busy in thinking that all of this system, this process is normal, it's okay, that you forget about yourself. Yeah? You become that process, you become that system, and you think that you're just another part of it. That what is happening to you does not matter. Yeah? So now we have TPVs and SHEVs. What's going to happen is more of the same. More people feeling that uncertainty around family, around wives, around children, that they might never see again. Yeah? It's bad enough that you've waited years for your life to arrive, and then you've got all these people who are your life, who are a part of your life, you might never see them again. Yeah? So that's TPVs and a little bit about detention, but the idea that and then this is what this process and what this system is doing, is that we have selective humanity, we have selective compassion. Yeah? We decide when it is right to show compassion and show empathy to people. We decide who is rightfully deserving of our compassion, of a refuge. And I think that with this process, aside from the systemic damage that it is doing, and mind you, the damage to people seeking asylum, the damage to refugees, That's a given. That's happening. We all, those of us who visit detention, those of us who've heard stories today, we know the damage is being done. Yeah, it's happening right now. But we don't realize the damage that is happening to this society. What is happening to the social fabric of this country right now? Because it is bringing down our level of humanity. It is bringing down and destroying our social fabric as well. So someday, and I say this with a bit of sarcasm, someday we are actually going to thank these people, because these are going to be the people who will restore some of our humanity. They will force us, they will make us think about how low the system and the politicians and the governments have sunk. These people will make us realize. Because right now we're so busy being reactive and being a part of this process, being a part of fighting this cruel system, that we don't actually realize how low we've sunk and how bad things are. But someday, we will actually thank these people because they're a good reminder to retain who we are, to regain for what we're known throughout the world, for being compassionate, for being generous, for showing compassion, for showing empathy, for giving people a fair go, a chance at life. So, while there are all those ills, there are also a lot of solutions. And there are a lot of things, and just the campaign that we've been running, and Dana's been doing an amazing job running it in Higgins, there is a lot of value, there is a lot of power in community. Just the fact that we've got you guys in this room today, I don't think we realize how powerful that alone in itself is. So, with this unfair determination process, with this system that is inflicting all this damage and pain, I guess the things that I want you guys to think about and leave with today are that, one, it is up to us. It is up to us to stop this division, language that is divisive and language that divides people, whether they've come by air, whether they've come by sea. We need to stop differentiating, because the media, the government, they'll continue and they'll pit us against each other. We already have people seeking asylum. We have already got refugees in the community who see and feel that division, who actually think they are different. Literally, they think that we're somehow better than people who've come by sea. This is happening today. Why? Because of this system, because of this line that the media is taking. So it is up to us to remember that it doesn't matter. Yes, people have experiences. We shouldn't dilute them. We shouldn't reduce them. Whether they come by air, whether they come by sea, the hardships, the experience of seeking asylum is there, acknowledging that, but remembering that there's a reason. And a lot of times, the majority of times, that reason for escaping persecution, oppression, torture, whatever the reason may be, is the same. Yeah? And it is up to us to bring people together rather than divide them. It is up to us to make sure that the action we take, that it is tangible, it is measurable, it is impactful. It is up to us to keep having these conversations and ensuring that we have people who have the lived experience and we stand by their side and create spaces and platforms for them to share their stories and create the impact with them, rather than us just doing what we've done for the last 20 years, which is just being reactive, just speaking loudly and shouting when it's not going to change, it's not going to be different, till we take this conversation. And the conversation needs to happen in the community. The conversation needs to happen in those marginal seats, which will be the difference in the upcoming election.